Greetings, friends. Today, we will talk about a very particular and impressive topic. More alchemical correspondences that demonstrate a concordance with life and nature. Wonderful similarities that works as proofs that things are not as they are shown to us. And how everything fits with ancient legends and the alchemy of the past empires. We will talk about a very complex and beautiful devices. Incredible artifacts whose mechanisms are linked to the alchemy of this world, to its cosmic cycles related to the movement of the sun and the higher planes. The way we humans measure time, and its correspondency with a flat Earth dimensional plane. Let's start. First, the time conception is clearly related to our senses, but it's not inherent to them. Cause time to pass without the animated being's participation. They just observe the cycles of life, flowing, disintegrating, just as the rain and the forces of transformation of nature. Time itself is such an incredible secret that I'll have to dedicate a full video to it in the future. Now, I will focus on explain how we humans measure and conceive time, and how this is related to the flat Earth and the supreme alchemy as a concealed sacred science on which all modern technologies derive. This is an astronomical clock. For many centuries, astronomical clocks were the closest thing to the actual computers. They allowed ancient knowledge to predict the time and date of the year. Many of them also gave the lapse of sunrise and sunset, the phases of the moon, or the positions of the planets and stars, by means of carefully calculated gears linked to the rhythms of the stars. These mechanisms made it possible to reproduce astronomical cycles and determine, with advantage, such complex sky phenomena, like eclipses of the sun or the moon. Although, there are those who consider the Antikythera mechanism as a precursor of all the mechanical calculators. In fact, this is much more complex than what they tell us. Let's analyze. The golden age of astronomical clocks, as we are told, takes place between the 14th and 16th centuries. At this time, the most prosperous cities begin to install these prodigious machines. While there are some variations between the different models, astronomical clocks can be classified into three main types. The first two types are called astrolabe, include a rotating elliptical circle with two flanges to indicate the movements of the sun and moon as well as the time. This includes astrolabe clocks made in Lund, in Dobruń, in Strasbourg, in Frankfurt, and Prague. All of them before 1500. If you travel to Prague, the astronomical clock of the city is one of the main tourist attractions behind. And it is not for less. It has a fascinating story and legend that could well make for a movie novel. As the imperial clockmaker, Nicholas of Catton created the original masterpiece for the city's center with the help of an astronomer priest. Jan Sindel, and has been keeping time for 605 years ever since. His story, as I was saying, has many incredible details. They blinded the master builder so that he could not recreate another one. There are those who believe that it is an amulet that keeps the city safe. Today we leave all that parked to focus on its operation. Because the years go by, and this piece of technology continues to be fascinating for any true researcher of the ancient and occult knowledge. Cause, this is a watch capable of showing the time in many ways, all accurately, and in absolute correspondence with a static and flat Earth dimension, as we will analyze below. The Prague astronomical clock has the design of an astrolabe, and in its three-part planning, it is capable of showing 5 moments of time at the same time. At the top, between 2 shutters, we have a puppet theatre with 12 apostles. Each of them leaves every 60 minutes to indicate what time it is. The figures are more recent than the clock and date from the 19th century. At the bottom, we have a calendar with illustrations of the months and seasons, also indicating which is the saint of each day of the year. Both parts are precious and have a great artistic interest, but the jewel of this watch is in the central body. The piece, as originally designed, tells us about the true shape of the world, showing a flat and circular Earth, as intrinsically seen from above, with a sun and a moon spinning over it. This watch is also capable of indicating the time in 5 different ways, and its mechanical part system is one of the most intricate. We have the golden sun that moves around the zodiac circle. That is to say, the annulums that give rise to the constellations. And the moon, just in the same way, both making an elliptical movement around a central point, which coincidentally is where the so-called northern lights come from. The convergence point. But that is another topic that I will detail in the future. Let's continue. This complex alchemical machine is capable of showing us 3 hours at the same time, decomposed into unequal ones. It is also capable of pointing out the time between sunrise and sunset in a 12-hour system. 12, just like the zodiac and the apostles. This system can only be taken from reality, understood by the sacred secret of light and the duality. That is, measure the distance between the sun's ray and the center of an axis. Do you see it? The same principle goes since the discovery of thought alchemical correspondency. Even a stick on the ground. That measurement is designed to reflect the true aspects of nature by showing the variations according to the time of year, because in summer, the first days are longer, while in winter occurs the opposite. That's why there are those quotes to compensate for this mismatch. On the outer edge of the clock, we have the numbers written in gold, which begin to mark at 1 o'clock in the evening. The rings move throughout the year to match the solar time. That is to say, that it perfectly shows the lunar time and the synchronization that exists between the 2 celestial lights that moves upon us. Correspondency that they never teach us anymore. We have the zodiacal ring, that is responsible for indicating the location of the Sun on the ecliptic. That is, the curved line where the Sun moves around the constellations. The annulums. If you know the zodiac, you will see that the signs are in a reverse clockwise order. But this arrangement has a reason. It is due to the use of a stereographic projection of the ecliptic plane, where the North Pole is used as the base. That is, Polaris. The guiding axis, or still star. The only star that does not move, and where all the compasses point. The convergence point that we already talked about in previous videos. For the common people, the zodiac is something fictitious and unimportant. But it was created as an allegory for these solar-lunar movements and cycles. Also, this arrangement is in all other astronomical clocks. Finally, we have a lunar sphere. That shows the phases of this other celestial body. The movement is similar to the main clock, but it is much faster. The clock is then made up of a stationary disk in the center, and two rotating disks, representing the cosmic movements. Just like the flat Earth model. This is in plain sight, and most do not see it. How can this flat mechanism work on a ball? This is an apparently simple system, but when we realize its complexity and precision, it makes us reassess and appreciate it for what it is. A technical prodigy, fruit of the knowledge and understanding of these alchemical life cycles. Finally, we should note that the mechanical system is so slow that it's impossible to see the movement of their parts with the eye in real time. Just like plant growth. Fortunately, there are already computer models where we can do different tests to better see how one of the oldest and most fascinating clocks in Europe moves and works. Here, we can see many other astronomical clocks. Look their complexity. Look at their similarity with the previously showed. The great knowledge they transmit, and how their knowledge is still true today. Cause all these clocks actually continue measuring time and astronomical cycles, despite the fact that they tell us that we are rotating, and all that constellations should be changing as we're going further, traveling in the supposedly space. However, all these constellations have been the same since the Egyptians, the Sumerians, and all the other advanced cultures who observed the sky. All this knowledge is embedded in the ancient calendars made in rock by different and very distant civilizations all throughout the known world. We must remember that this known circle is being melted by the sun, having extreme freezing temperatures beyond the ice walls. This is a dimensional plane flux. And since ancient times, this was an indisputably taken fact. The wisdom that exists in all these maps, and that carries an intimate knowledge of the geography of the old world. How could they have made such maps without airplanes or hot air balloons? There are many fabulous hypotheses in ancient times that involve flying carpets and all kinds of charms that could well be mistaken with technology. Cause there is no difference between the true ancient sacred knowledge and the repeated facts that now call science. we already seen the UPITs and the advanced techno-alchemical processes that they entail. Things that modern humanity could not replicate. As if it were all from the future and not from the past. Maybe vestiges from a cataclysm. They never tell us why all the archaeological objects are found broken and scattered, buried in a thick layer of mud or dirt, even fossilized. We have already seen the ancient stories that tell us about the Ragnarok and other great catastrophes that separated the world, leaving it as it is now, destroying civilizations with awesome technologies. There were many such disasters, some of them in the deep antiquity and others in the recent past. The earliest of them occurred, we theorize, in 1775. There, the universal history was reset. The testimony of what happened previously were erased, and the remains of the ancient civilizations like Tartary were buried by a mud flood, the result of the activation of a volcanic chain cycle outside the ice wall. But the history prior to the reset logically not disappear. It was simply covered by the current controlling empire, archiving it and hiding all the modern alchemy that translates the ancient texts and symbols. Written texts that are said to be indecipherable. And that indeed they are. Unless you can access to the encryption code. The Brandenmauer code. A desencryptation code that transforms cryptic and indecipherable texts, like the Voynich manuscript, making it legible. It also allows us to accurately date all the events prior to the Great Disaster, being able to decipher very old engravings and hieroglyphs, even knowing the very moment when it took place. The same Brandenmauer code encrypts and desencrypts itself. That is, it contains the key that reveals it. From what I understand, it is the artificial intelligence desencrypting the Akashic records, opening them using the digital language. This all started as a rumor, but it seems to be true. On April 21 of 2019, a fragment of the Brandenmauer code was accessible at a deep web address between 0 hours 31 minutes and 7 hours 56 minutes, London time. During this period, there were 12 attempted accesses, and the file was downloaded 9 times according to certain informants. The consequences of that filtration are unpredictable. It must be recognized that all this what is said about it here is purely conjectural, and it will only take relevance for the few gnawers. The big question is whether a mere fragment of the code would allow it to be replicated in their totality. In his annotation, referring to the second edition of Hussein Mayer's booklet, as early as 1971, Krasiek argued that the code is iterative and fractal in structure, so that one of the fragments of it is enough to replicate it entirely. However, in his announcement at the secret La Rochelle Congress of 1947, Diaforas sustained that only the integrity of the code was useful and intelligible. Be as it may, it is clear that whoever possesses the useful code We'll direct their gaze to the Voynich manuscript, the Rongo texts, and the Egyptian steles, to the ancient giant books, to crop circles, and to the testimonies of symbols of interdimensional beings. Who knows if right now, some seeker has not already found out through this fragment what happened in the 1,000 years prior to the fall of Tartary. He may have also found out that all science is alchemy, and that Akashic records and magic are real. That you just need to ask the right questions. Feel them. He maybe has found out that nature is the only way, and that everything ancient carries incredible knowledge and wisdom. That we are here to thrive, and to guide the energies of this world around love and purification. He maybe saw all the lies this world is mired in, the suffering of the children and the crying of the earth. It is time to clear our hearts and our souls and understand that the only way to save ourselves is to educate children for the future. Let's arm them with hope and knowledge, of love for this world and for the whole life. We speak the truth, and we will be heard. You just have to wake up from the great deception. The system does not work. Time to get out. Reactive Factory Project.